everyone, and welcome to GfK's Decode the Future. I'm Lindsay Herbert. I'm the author of the book Digital Transformation, and I'm really excited about today's event because it might sound like, big data and intelligence and AI, and what it really comes down to, though, is decision making, right? Something that we have to do day in and day out in our work lives and our home lives, and something that's been made a heck of a lot more complicated over these last 18 months. But you know what? It reminds me of when I was writing my book. I went around and I spoke to company leaders all over the world, ones who were trying to transform their companies into something that was completely different than what it was at the time I was speaking to them. New products, new services, new customer base, And then there were also the ones who were trying to transform just to stay the course of what they were originally intending to do, but in the face of constant environmental change around them. What was interesting is as I was having all of these conversations, I realized that there was a common thread between the two sides. The winners and the losers, the ones who were successful, whether they were transforming completely or transforming to stay the course. The ones who were successful were looking at the small, tiny signs of change on the horizon. And they were adapting to it as they went. They were doing experiments. They were working in new ways. They were leveraging new technologies. They were doing it, though, when the change was small, when the risk that went with it was small. And they were looking to see how those experiments were going to affect the change as it came towards them. And then there were the ones who weren't successful. And there was a common thread there as well. They were the ones who stayed the course no matter what, who set a goal and ignored all the data points that didn't support that goal. And those ones aren't around anymore. Now, this isn't just something that interested me as an author, as an academic, because I'm not actually an academic. My day job, I'm someone who works with cutting-edge technologies every day. I happen to be a chief innovation officer for one of the world's biggest tech companies. I'm an inventor. And I happen to use that same approach, that same look for those small early signs of change on the horizon to see how I can affect it and how I can help my clients, the big companies that I work with, affect that change in a way that's going to make them more successful. Now, the subject of today's talk, or the title of today's event, is Decode the Future. Really, it all comes back to what real digital transformation actually is, which is being adaptive to change. And as we're seeing all around us, you can't be adaptive to change without leveraging data, new ways of working, technology. It's about the how as well as the what. And that's entirely what today's event is going to be about. And for me personally, I think this is an interesting thing because I actually started out about as far away from my current profession as you can get. In case you can't tell by my accent, I'm from Northern Canada, which means that, whilst today I sit in boardrooms or I work in labs on cutting-edge technologies, well, when I was young, the best invention I could have thought of would have been something to stop black bears from getting into our garbage cans. So how did I get from the woods of Northern Canada to where I am? Well, it's exactly the same way that those company leaders who succeeded in transformation got their businesses to evolve and change and adapt to the world around them, those small, early signs of change. Because that's really the other reason why I was excited to host today's event, is because it's not just about your companies. It's about you and your careers, what you're doing as professionals, and how you can see the small and early signs of change, how you can leverage technology and data and work with others in order to have a positive effect on that change as it comes towards you. So I am so pleased to introduce our speakers for today's event, starting with Peter, the CEO of GfK, who's going to talk to us about tools and technology that you can use to create that map through that forest. Then we're going to hear from Oracle and how to optimize your data. In other words, how to get your team so that they can all read the map and follow it along with you. And then lastly, the bit that I'm looking forward to the most is our panel of industry experts who are going to talk about their own journeys through the forest, how they've created their own maps, the decisions that they've made along the way, and what decisions they're about to make, what's on their horizon. Because you know what? COVID might make the forest seem a lot darker, that path a lot scarier to try to navigate. You know, the leaves have grown up across the canopy and you can't see the stars. The undergrowth has gotten very dense. But the reality is that that's just more data. That's just more signs you can read, things that you can interpret. You just have to be able to read them. You have to be able to work with others, to collaborate, to build ecosystems, to solve those problems, but when the changes are small and still on that horizon. We do it that way, we can all go back to being explorers, not feel so lost in the woods. So, please welcome Peter.
Thank you very much, Lindsay, for your kind introduction, and a warm welcome to all of you. We're really thrilled that you're with us today. These are exciting times right now that create massive challenges, but also incredible opportunities for all of us. COVID has propelled the world forward globally easily by 5 years. Disruption, acceleration, data overload, and sustainability are the themes on the table. 83% of consumers have changed their shopping behavior during COVID and lasting. Click and mortar is winning the retail game, causing the need for a massive acceleration in our clients' organization and the way they actually deal with their business. Some 5 years ago, hardly any data was available, and today we face a total data overload. And our clients need to know where to look and receive clear recommendations what to act upon. Data and analytics-centric companies are winning, and they are growing about 30% stronger than the average. And so Richard Joyce, a senior analyst at Forrester, has just mentioned that 10% increase in data access will propel about 65 million additional income for a typical Fortune 100 company. We also know that a data-centric organization aligned with a decision culture will have a 20 times higher chance to win new customers and a 6 times higher chance to retain those customers. GfK has dealt with data safely for more than 85 years, consent-based. That has built the trust we need to help our clients propel in this new decade. Our data partnerships with more than 100,000 retailers globally, on and offline, and our 2 million panelists have been and will continue being at the heart of our doing at GfK. But we also knew that in this radically changed environment, we needed to rethink and reinvent our game. And we have done exactly that. So today, we are really proud to present to you gfknewron, our intuitive AI-powered intelligence platform. gfknewron addresses the urgent needs of our clients, not just to have good maps, but to provide them at their fingertips and in real time, and whenever and wherever they need it, a GPS that provides clear direction for turning right or turning left, and that provides alerts like traffic jams and also recommendations for which paths to take for best fuel efficiency. Over the past 3 years, our teams at GfK have worked relentlessly with our clients to develop our new AI-powered platform, gfknewron. And gfknewron, in all reality, is a little bit like a GPS. It seamlessly supports the driver at any time to make the right decision. Now, we don't drive the car for you, but we totally step change your efficiency and effectiveness on your journey. So how do we do that? Well, we'll find out that our client's organization need to know what has been bought where and at what price. And with that, we've created gfknewron Market, our first module. And then our clients need to understand the consumer sentiment, who has bought consumer products and why, and who has not bought them and why. And we've created our second module, gfknewron Consumer. And then thirdly, our clients need to really define and shape what to do next. And we are supporting their next move with AI-powered capabilities of our third module, gfknewron Predict. Now, we don't stop here. We have our new platform capabilities, and hence our journey will continue. And so I'm really pleased to already announce today that by the end of this calendar year, we'll be launching our next offering, gfknewron for retailers. As I've said, our world has changed radically, and that was even propelled by the COVID crisis. Disruption, acceleration, data overload, and the demands on sustainability. Hence, our clients seriously need to advance their own capabilities and ways of working. We at GfK have advanced our game from being their map to being their GPS. So gfknewron also is a unique opportunity for our clients to advance their own organizational capabilities and collaboration cross-functionally. Literally every CEO that I know has or is developing a digitization agenda for their company. And every strategy consultant is advising our clients to advance their organizations to become much more data and analytics centered. gfknewron will help our clients to do exactly that. And based on decades of trusted collaboration between GfK and our clients, but now reloaded with state-of-the-art and AI-powered capabilities at their fingertips. Dear friends, I'm very proud to present the new GfK to you today. Today marks an important milestone on our transformation to an AI-powered data analytics and consulting company, enabled by a complete software-as-a-service infrastructure. And with that, I'm very pleased to introduce our CPO, Sean O'Neill, to you, who will lay out to you how our gfknewron is working. Sean, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter, for that great introduction. Hi, I'm Sean O'Neill, Chief Product Officer of GfK. We are unlocking data-centric decision-making for our clients. We've evolved and grown to become a brilliant data software company. And I'm excited to bring the best of my technology lessons learned over the past 20 years from Amazon, Tesco, data analytics firms, startups, to bring to market our new gfknewron platform and the first three modules of Predict, Market, and Consumer. Our agile development teams are releasing updates twice a week to constantly improve the platform for our users so they can make better decisions faster with confidence. And as you heard previously, we already have the next new offering in the works. gfknewron for retailers is coming soon. We are unique and unparalleled. GfK is a trusted and independent data partner for major industry players. We host data from the world's largest retail and reseller panel with continuous sellout data subscribed to by most major manufacturers. We track purchase journey insights from hard-to-find recent buyers. This is the biggest purchase journey survey in the world, and every year we collect over 800,000 interviews across 19 tech and durable product categories in 17 major countries worldwide. It's big. gfknewron is enterprise-grade insights with consumer-grade usability. This is at your fingertips, answers in seconds, coordinating an entire team to be more productive for our clients because they all can work in the same moment from the same ground truth. gfknewron supports many different job functions and roles across a wide range of global consumer tech and durable good categories. including refrigerators to laptops, from smart speakers to coffee machines, and everything in between. This is a browser-based tool. It is not an installed application. It's all cloud-based, it's all secure. So whether your teams are in the office or work from home, your teams are still productive with this tool. Not only do we help you to collaborate more effectively, we're able to help you cut through all of the data and get the signal from the noise. Let's show one example of persona, one category, one use case. I want you to meet Tasnia. She's a product marketing manager for Brand X. They make washing machines, predominantly in the low to mid-range market in Europe. But they want to move into the premium sector to drive higher margins. Now, Tasnia and her teams need to identify which European market is the best to test first. Tasnia expects they will need to develop a marketing campaign to pull this off, to drive awareness for the brand in the premium sector. This leads to some questions that the whole team needs to answer. Who are our target consumers? How should we position the products for these consumers? What are touch points to reach this group? What is the best opportunity for growth? What is the size of this opportunity for revenue and profitability? And lastly, which retailers should we partner with? With gfknewron, Tasnia can work collaboratively with the product teams on the where and the what, with her marketing teams on the who and the how, with the sales team to engage with retailers on the execution. Let's zoom in to gfknewron. Identifying promising markets to enter is incredibly time-consuming. Not only that, it's difficult to find comparable data across markets to make a good decision. Tasnia has access to all the category and country details in gfknewron for her business. On her computer, she's already filtered by major European countries and the washing machine category. She can see, as she takes in all of this information about where the market's moving, Germany, France, and Great Britain are the three largest markets, but that France has been growing much more strongly over the last year, both in market units and in revenue. With the stronger existing footprint her brand already has in France, she sees that this seems to be the most promising first market for them to enter with the new premium range. The past 18 months have been so disruptive and unpredictable that it can make your teams unsure what will happen next. Basing your planning decisions on real, accurate data and powerful forecasts can highlight the risks and improve outcomes. We use artificial intelligence, deep learning models to forecast these markets, including data sets for point-of-sale transactions, changing consumer sentiment, macroeconomic indicators, even COVID factors such as the infection rates, business openings and closings, and citizen mobility, to the point we're able to predict the business impacts from COVID lockdowns. Tasnia wants to see if the strong market growth seen so far this year is expected to continue for France. With gfknewron forecasting, she sees that the strong growth is expected to slow down over the next few months, but overall, this market will still grow slightly year on year. This helps her to understand the likely size of the French market when they get to launch. For your own brand to succeed, it's important to understand and learn from the strategies and success of your competitors. You need to quickly spot and react to opportunities for you in the market, and crucially, be able to track the success or otherwise of your strategic brand decisions. Ultimately, the long-term goal of all brands is the same: profitability. And this is where gfknewron's Revenue Premium comes in. With gfknewron's Revenue Premium feature, you can see not only how your brand compares to others in terms of units sold and price positioning, but crucially, you can also view the revenue premium each brand achieves in the market. This shows you how much consumers are willing to pay for your product above the base price paid for other similar competing products. That is a proxy for profit. At a glance, you can see where all the profits are accumulating in the market. This makes Revenue Premium a powerful new currency to track alongside our revenue and unit market share currencies, as it finally allows teams to know if they are earning more share of the consumer's willingness to pay. This becomes an important dashboard for entire organizations to set targets and achieve not just growth, but profitable growth as a company. Tasnia and her product development team want to dig deeper into how her brand is performing in France relative to competitors, particularly those in the more premium space. She already has applied filters to view the subsets of the market. Here, looking at the revenue premium earned across the landscape just from those higher priced products sold with an average price of greater than or equal to 550 euros. This allows Tasnia and team to understand the potential size of the opportunity in terms of profitability that they could achieve through a successful launch into this area. So now, Tasnia can hit play and see how this market for revenue premium and the various competing strategies have played out over the last year. For the two largest competitors, their revenue premium is around 45% of their total revenue volume, far higher than Tasnia's brand. Tasnia can see her brand still has room to improve versus the most profitable brands in the market, which is exactly why she wants to expand into the more premium segment of the market. One thing to focus on, it's those big bubbles. That is who's winning in this market and who is not. Now, different brands can have different effective strategies in the different quadrants, but the size of the bubble shows you the score. For developing new products, adding a feature no one cares about can cost your business millions. Equally, missing important features that customers must have can cost you market share and lead to unsold inventory or markdowns. As well as looking at the brand level, Tasnia and her product development team can view, filter, and drill down into the product model details. They can identify what are the best-selling premium models in this market. With just a few clicks, Tasnia can compare the best-selling models and their feature sets. She can see a time series of when these products have launched into the market and how well they have performed since then. As she looks over all of the features and attributes of these best-selling models, she feels encouraged by what she sees. She knows that the feature set for her brand's planned premium model is going to compare well against these. But as she looks over some of the features they all have, most of these top-selling models also have Steam functionality. She knows her brand specification does not plan to include this feature. Now, how can Tasnia decide whether to make the expensive commitment to add this new feature? Hold that thought as Tasnia works through gfknewron. Understanding who your target customer is and how best to market to them is key to maximizing your return on marketing spend. In our gfknewron consumer module, we have in-depth data sets on understanding the consumer coming together in a secret sauce way that you cannot get anywhere else. Powered by the largest purchase journey survey in the world with over 800,000 responses in a year. You not only get an understanding of the customer purchase sentiment of what and why and how of the market, but it's also weighted against the actual volume of sellout in that market. Tasnia wants to launch in the premium sector, so now they want to develop a marketing strategy that will drive awareness for the brand with this target audience and support the brand's strategy to enter and focus on the French premium markets. She can refine her audience to just look at the premium buyers in France and can see the models they are most likely to buy. So as Tasnia goes into our shopper section, she's able to see the key demographic breakdowns as to who is buying in the premium sector. And as she reflects back on her earlier analysis on the overall size of the opportunity in France, she can start to quantify the potential value of the most common buying groups. Tasnia is confident that the older purchasers who make up the majority of buyers in this premium sector represent a worthwhile target audience for her initial campaign. So next, Tasnia wants to understand current perception of her brand versus the competition on the factors that matter most to consumers in this sector. Oh no, she sees that her brand ranks last in being perceived to have the latest innovations or highest quality products. This is concerning. Is this a real manufacturing quality issue or a consumer perception issue? But thankfully, she can quickly filter the data based on past buyers of her brand and see what their sentiment rating was. She sees that this is just a perception issue. That is great, because the previous brand owner is ranking her with high product quality. This confirms the need to run a marketing campaign to improve the perceptions of her brand in the premium space, really pushing messages around innovation and quality. It's key to make sure your marketing campaign leads with the right message for your audience. With gfknewron, you can track and monitor how consumer preferences and purchase drivers change over time, making sure you can always adapt to the changing market. Thinking further on the potential messaging for her campaign, Tasnia now explores the key purchase drivers for this group of consumers. And as she filters, she can note that both brand and product features are the most important drivers of purchase. As we get more specific on some of the product features, she sees that advanced wash programs and energy efficiency are the two most influential product features that will drive purchase. And she knows that by highlighting these features in any campaign will be important to help drive and change the brand perception she's looking for. And remember her concern about Steam functions that were in all the other top models? Well, she can also see that Steam functionality is not as important a product feature for these consumers. This is fantastic. It's reassuring her that her product has the right feature sets to compete in this segment of the market. This will save her company millions by not including a costly new product feature that would not make a difference. Once you've identified who to market to and what to say to them, the final area to explore is where to reach them. With gfknewron, you can analyze and compare the research and advertising channel touchpoints that consumers use, and crucially, see retailer shares across the globe. This is powerful, coming from consumer data sources with over 3 years of history. Tasnia and her channel management teams can see which retailers dominate the market. They can continue to filter and refine the retailer brand view for the consumer audience she cares most about. And now she knows which retail brands she needs to work with to position her product there. We have shown you a very fast journey of Tasnia and her colleagues across marketing, sales, product, finance, insights, headquarters, all working from the same ground truth to make a series of business critical decisions. They are able to identify the right market to enter, quantify the value of the opportunity, both in terms of revenue and crucially in terms of profitability, understand the key competitor brands and models in the premium sector, make sure her planned model specifications meet the consumer needs, understand who to target in what channels, and with the right message to resonate with consumers, and finally identify key retailers to stock this model. Tasnia and these dispersed teams were able to make these decisions with confidence because of the accurate and timely data available at their fingertips. Because the whole organization shared one ground truth, using gfknewron consumer, market, and predict modules. We have only shown you a fraction of what gfknewron can do. There is so much more AI predictive power within gfknewron, surfacing critical notifications and recommendations on your market threats and opportunities so that your teams can stay alert, agile, and pivot in the moment to stay ahead of the competition. gfknewron enables individuals, teams, and organizations across many functions, local, regional, group, to make faster, more confident decisions to win across their markets, all working from the same ground truth. Many companies aspire to have their organizations be data-driven, and gfknewron is a simple place to start, all available now in the cloud through the browser. We can empower your business with enterprise-grade insights, consumer-grade usability. This is gfknewron. Shape the future. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Sean. There was so much great information in there, but what's the risk of not doing this?
Well, I guess the risk is you fall behind to those who do.
Thanks so much. Coming up next, we've got Shashi Seth from Oracle to talk about the best practices to optimize your data.
Hello, everyone. When customers are exposed to great experiences every day of their life, they get used to it, and that becomes the de facto standard. Restaurants can be reserved with a click of a button. Food gets delivered with a few clicks and shows up in 30 minutes or less. Products can be bought with one click and delivered within hours or days. And ride shares show up in a few minutes with upfront prediction on costs and time to destination, and no payments are required at the end of the ride. When that happens several times a day to all of us, then that becomes the de facto standard that we expect as customers, and that includes customers of B2B companies. The million-pound question is, how is all of this possible? How do companies deliver top-notch experiences like this? And the answer is simple. They know a lot about their customers. They know a lot about the market, the conditions, the competition. This game is all about data and the intelligence built on top of it. This is the experience economy, ladies and gentlemen. Nothing less will do. Every interaction with your customers, both digital and physical, is an opportunity to learn more. Each one of these touch points generates customer data unique to that interaction. An order number, a cookie, an email, a billing address, what products are they interested in, what products did they buy, did they leave a review, was it a good one or a bad one? Did they open the last email that you sent them about the new product launch? And did they take any action on it? Where do they live? What do they prefer? All kinds of interesting data. But what companies struggle with is how to capture and bring this data together. Often they do not have the right resources to do this. It is a daunting task. But often these companies do not realize how valuable this data is and what an amazing ROI they can get with this effort. In a study conducted by consulting firm McKinsey, they found that the more a company knew about their customers, the more successful they were likely to be as a business. Just knowing name, phone number, address, and email address is not enough anymore. Of course, it is way better than not knowing anything about your customers. But really, knowing more gives you significantly better chance of being successful. Knowing what products did your customers buy? When did they buy it? Did they get a discount? Did they buy insurance to go with it? When does the warranty run out? And what are they interested in today? Are they in the market? Are they brand conscious? Are they value shoppers? How many people are in their household? Who is the primary shopper? What is the household income? And lots of information like that. This data is worth its weight in gold. And all this data allows companies to build sophisticated predictors and models that can help identify who are the most loyal customers, what their yearly spend is going to be, or the lifetime value of that customer. It can help identify what products are selling and which ones are not. Who is the ideal buyer of these products? It makes your revenue projections and your supply chain planning significantly better. And it allows you to create the right pricing and discounting strategies for your products. You all just heard about this company planning its expansion in the high-end washer and dryer business. They built that plan on GfK's amazing data set on markets, competition, and consumer sentiment data. After all, introducing washer and dryers in a crowded field may not be the best strategy. Now imagine that they can do a little more with that data, because now they have some amazing data about their customers to build upon. Based on insights about their loyal customers in the United Kingdom, this company might have found that there is a strong correlation between refrigerators and washer dryers, meaning people who buy refrigerators also tend to buy washer dryers. This insight can truly help curate a list of these customers that are likely to be the right customers who might want to buy these high-end washers and dryers. And maybe this list isn't very large to create an effective marketing campaign to launch this product in the market. But with the right data and the right partnerships, you could do what is called in the industry lookalike modeling for digital advertising, where this company is now capable of creating a cohort of potential customers to address that group of people with the right campaign in front of them at the right time and convert them. So, how do you get started on this journey? Well, there are 5 simple steps. Number 1, you start by identifying all the data you need for a complete understanding of your customer. Remember what I said. The more you know, the better. Find ways to gather this information. Number 2, pick a platform and vendor that can help you connect the dots and start consolidating this data in one place. You might need a data lake, a consumer data platform, or something similar. Anything that is both performant and one that can scale. Research what capabilities these platforms and vendors can offer that allow you to do this without needing an army of data engineers and data scientists. Let's face it, these data scientists are really hard to find. Number 3, leverage and enrich the data with second and third-party data sources. GfK just showed you what you can do to leverage their data. That's fantastic data. You might find other kinds of data enrichment capabilities from other vendors in the market that provide things like household income for each one of your existing loyal customers. Number 4, make sure that your front office applications in marketing, service, sales, etc. can leverage this data and contribute back to it. Service and support calls are often great opportunities to learn more and build a better customer happiness and loyalty score. These days, customers are very happy to give phone numbers for getting notifications on delivery and service calls. Number 5, last but not the least, glean information and insights through the data to deliver better results. Your customers are leaving lots of breadcrumbs with every touch point they have with you. People often ask me, how is it even possible to have 300 attributes for a customer? And my answer to them is that they are being myopic with their view of customer data. Take a look at the questions I have posed on this slide. I guarantee you that I could come up with 10 slides with questions just like this in a little over an hour. Oracle's customer data platform, Unity, comes with 300 attributes out of the box. This is the starting point. You can add as many more as you want. Bottom line is that any company can and should find lots of data about their customers. Now, once you have the data, where do you store it? And believe me when I say this, it is not just about storing the data. It is how you access the data, how you put it to work, how you build intelligence on top of it. you need a platform that can do many of the following things. It can bring in data continuously from multiple sources. I have customers with as many as 35 or more sources that they're pulling this data constantly. Align that data to fit the schema that you decide works best for your business. And then being able to clean and validate the data, being able to do identity matching and resolution so that you can remove duplicates. You want to enrich this data. You want to make the data accessible to applications and humans alike. And do all of this without writing code. Be able to do segmentation for targeting. Be able to derive intelligent attributes, things like churn propensity score, lifetime value, next best action or offer. Be able to derive brand loyalty. Be able to communicate and find out if your customers are fatigued because you are over-communicating, and hundreds of other capabilities. You need a vendor that can work with you to not only bring a platform like this to life, but can also help you get it up and running in short order. There are lots of amazing ways to leverage the data. For example, property insurers can really subscribe to data sources to analyze weather patterns, be able to understand historical weather patterns to calibrate insurance coverage requirements by geographies. Restaurants might subscribe to population and location data to identify optimal regions for expansion. Where should they place their next restaurants? This would allow our example company to grow the size of their targeted audience in France, for example, in the high-end washer and dryer business, to include lots of new prospects who purchase similar or complementary products or services from a direct competitor. Imagine if you could find a correlation between people who buy particular brands of high-end washing detergents and people who own high-end washer dryers. Wouldn't we want to target those customers? It might help them decide what is the most optimal time to launch their products in the market based on buying patterns. It might also help them with pricing and discounting strategies. And when you start connecting all your front office applications, you now have the power to provide the best experiences to your customers at every touch point. Every one of these touch points will build loyalty, improve retention rates, increase revenue for the company, decrease costs, all kinds of stuff. This is how you grow your business. Imagine that your customer support recognizes the customers based on where the call comes in from. They can address the customers by their first name and know what products or services they might be calling about. And maybe you have been monitoring your customers' activity on your website, which suggests they might have a problem with their dryer, that you already have a ready answer for them. And when you are really good at this, you did not even wait for that call to happen because you already addressed their issue via chat on the website. Imagine that. And that data is now captured in your customer data platform, and based on that interaction, classifies them as a happy and referenceable customer. That could trigger an email to ask them to give a review and get a 15% discount on the next purchase. When your data is connected, and it is clean and current, now your entire business has the chance to be truly connected and working as one. An airline once asked me if a strategy like this could help them stop sending a customer promotional messages when that customer is sitting at an airport because their flight was delayed or canceled. A large e-commerce company asked me if we can identify when a customer has already purchased a product so that they can stop advertising to them and save advertising costs. And a supercar company asked if we could help the dealers identify what additional products and services they can sell and when to their customer base. The good news is all of this is possible if you put in the effort into it. Collecting all the appropriate data about your customers is the foundation, but real value can be derived when you start applying AI and machine learning to this data. Here are some examples of what we do with this data today. When to send an email. Should it be at 7 a.m. in the morning or 7 p.m. in the evening? And we can do that for each customer. Slight improvements in open rates can make big differences in ROI. What should the subject line be? Is it better to use words like luxury or innovation or environmentally conscious in the subject line? Is it better to send email or SMS to this customer? What does the customer prefer? What should the content look like? Should the price be crossed out and show discounts because maybe that's get people excited? And when to stop communicating? Have you over-communicated with your customers? Are some of them fatigued? Should you stop for a while? This kind of intelligence will drive significantly better results for your customers and for your business. And when you have done all of this, really, when you have put in the effort and you put your mind and your resources to work, you will have taken your business to the next level. Ladies and gentlemen, it was great to be here. Thank you for having me here today.
Shashi, thank you so much for that delightful keynote. And speaking as someone who has received one of those promotional messages while waiting on a canceled flight, I couldn't agree more with the need for this kind of work. So I said at the start, we were going to look at how to get the map, how to read the map, and now, the part I've been looking forward to the most, how to pick the path once you've got all those other pieces. And so I'm delighted to introduce our panel. It's going to be chaired by Christine. Thank you so much. Over to you, Christine.
Thank you. Well, welcome, everyone. I get the pleasure of introducing this fine panel. We have Christoph Auer-Welsbach, co-founder of Kaizo. We have Warren Saunders, president of Global Sales GfK. We have Franziska Divis, go-to-market director, Microsoft. We have Antony, CEO of Factmata. So welcome, everyone. And I get to ask the first question to all of these panelists. So could you tell me where the value is going to be in the coming years? Starting with Ant, across instrumentation, data collection, data storage, processing power, analytics, insights, decisions, all those areas, which part of the data value chain is going to get the most of your attention?
So at Factmata, we're focusing on textual analysis and semantics. We think that with all the content we're all kind of creating and sharing online, it's still mostly text-based. So from Facebook posts to tweets to Reddit articles, even memes shared online, all the comments generated around a single image, it's all text-based data. But the challenge we've got right now, what we're all spending a bunch of time on, is manually analyzing that data to get to the kind of quantitative data points we need to automate our processes. So that's where we're focusing, is on automating the process of understanding textual content so that brands, PR agencies, social media agencies can get to those kind of quantitative data points in an automatic fashion.
Good, thank you. And Christoph, what about you? Where are you focused?
Sure. So, I mean, to add to Ant's point, right, I think the focus number one is, since data storage is cheap and it's available, that we really look at the data processing. So we need to get smarter about which data we process and how we process it, because that's expensive and that also takes a lot of time and a lot of resources, even on the skills side, which we're talking a bit about as well. The second focus for us at Kaizo in particular is really about how to derive actual insights out of this data. And we're not talking about only insights from analytics perspective, but even for decision-making perspective. So how can we enable every knowledge worker to nurture kind of the data that is available and insights out of that to make the right decision at the right time to achieve their goals, and basically to adhere to the targets that basically an organization has set out for them.
Thank you. Franziska, over to you.
So me being in the IT industry, obviously we rely on a lot of data. So we are looking at any kind of data on a daily analysis, on a weekly analysis, on a monthly. So we are looking at a lot of data that we also pulling together. So this is essential to actually look at all the data across the value chain and to have it all at our fingertips. So we are basically using the power of analysis and using the power of technology. So I also assume that for the next coming years, there will be a lot of processing power that will be needed together with software that's optimized so we can actually have all the data at our fingertips.
What about you, Warren? Where are you headed?
Well, I mean, gathering data has been our business for over 80 years, and we do that across both digital and analog means, across hundreds of thousands of retailers. So doing that more quickly, doing that more accurately, and having that data there and ready in a standardized format so that we can analyze and overlay automated intelligence on top of it remains incredibly important and critical to us. And obviously, as you've heard already in today's session, then the layer over the top of that, the intelligence and the insight that we lay over the top of that is going to be absolutely critical to us in terms of delivering more value moving forwards.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I did want to tell the audience, by the way, you are most welcome to submit questions. There's a question box in the platform, so please do, and I'll have a look for those in a moment. But first, back to Christoph for a question on re-engineering.
Sure.
There are so many companies that are just about to do a bunch of re-engineering and building upon existing systems, right, to get to this future of being data-driven.
Right.
Can you tell us what these big businesses can learn from startups who've already done data, who've already done automation?
Right. I think it's on the one hand quite generic, which is where bigger companies, corporations most likely, they have a lot of resources typically available, which means that they approach a big problem also from trying to solve it from a big conceptual perspective. What startups are, due to the resource constraints in many ways, do is that they try to focus on a very narrow use case and try to solve that in this particular use case with the end customer, the end user in mind. And that basically gives them a competitive advantage. And if we take this now for the data automation systems in particular, where we talk about ETLs, so extract, transform, and load, right, tasks, services, they're basically what startups have in mind is that they work right at the beginning with a specific set of customers. So they have the end user in the focus, and they try to generate the value at the end user level and not trying to build around to solving kind of this whole problem from a conceptual perspective and from a conceptual level. So with this actionability focus on the end and this end user focus, I think that's on the data automation side where larger organizations and corporations can learn from startups to really, again, narrow down on the end consumer and on the end consumer case basically that they're trying to solve, and then broaden out slowly, step by step, by growing with their customers to solve the bigger picture, if you will.
Good. And Franziska, what about you?
Yeah, I think for me, the biggest advantage is agility. So startups are much more agile than the large corporations that have kind of their established paths. So this is a great opportunity that should definitely be used. Also, startups can bring these kind of new perspectives of how they analyze data, what they do, and then make their decisions on that. They can also help remove some of the complexities that are present in some of the big corporates, and by, again, being agile on that. And then last but not least, they can resolve or help to resolve business issues that large corporations have been dealing with and saying, well, we didn't quite get around to solve that problem. But then the startup comes in and says, okay, this is something I can either help you with, or this is something that is not even a discussion in our company because we solved it already. So from that, I think there's a lot to learn from startups on that side.
You know, at the Turing, we are researchers in this field of machine learning and data science, and we actually work typically with other researchers, but also with businesses. And we find some of these very same things. You can have a discipline that's entirely sort of, in its prime and really sort of conservative, and then in another discipline can be sort of just cropping up and finding new ways of even doing research. So even in the scientific domains, you're finding that this sort of data approach is vastly changing the way teams are working. So it's interesting to hear those perspectives. I'm just going to check for...
Maybe Christine, just...
Go ahead.
Maybe Christine, just to add quickly to that, right? What you just said is quite spot on. I think we talk a lot, when we talk about data, we often talk about bias, right? And I think bias is also with organizations that have existing practices, as Franziska said, right? Or have even existing data, lots of data, where they are biased basically on how to utilize that and how to approach the problem, where startups come in and basically with a different perspective try to solve it, again, with limited resources in a different way. And that might be a competitive advantage in the end.
Yeah. Yeah. And actually, a question here has come up about the data itself, which is, I think, best directed at Antony, which is, what should businesses or organizations really do with complex, inaccurate, or even misleading data? What should they do about this?
Well, I think it's a good question, and I can see why it's come up at this time. So I think probably the first thing to recognize is that data isn't going to get any less misleading or any kind of less complex. It's going to get more so, and that actually is going to increase at an exponential rate. Yep. So I think recognizing that and getting your strategy set for that. And the second thing is probably skills. So making sure that you're training everyone in your company. And I would say, kind of controversially, not so much investing in the data teams, that's already happening. And I'm sure there's some data teams watching right now, and even in the leadership who are probably also watching right now. But I would say across the whole of the business. So making sure that grassroots, everyone in the business understands fundamentally the concepts that they're playing with. Because these tools they're using on a daily basis, often multiple times of the day, they're relying on the outcome of AI and machine learning, and yet they don't understand the fundamental concepts. Yeah. So for companies like mine, where we in an AI business, we're trying to work on explainability, we need to kind of be met halfway. So I would say, yeah, make sure you're training all of your teams. They don't have to become data scientists, but the fundamentals of machine learning.
Yep. And Warren, when we think about this journey of going from sort of partial automation all the way to sort of full intelligence, full automation in business systems where everything's integrated and all the industries you work with are fully optimized, how far along do you think we really are? And what's inhibiting any further adoption?
Yeah, well, I think, if you look kind of historically at the FMCG type organizations, they've been much better and much more fast moving in terms of their adoption of data and their usage of data to drive decision making, whereas I think some of the sort of white goods and MDA manufacturers have tended to be a little bit slower on the uptake. I think Peter made an interesting point at the beginning of today's session when he talked about COVID having accelerated things by 5 years, and I think we're really seeing that at the moment as channel strategy, pricing strategy, promotion, etc. Everything kind of gets thrown up in the air all at once. Consumer behaviours are changing. We don't know how quickly they're reverting to type or whether these are permanent shifts that we're seeing. So I think we need to look at that data a lot more frequently and in a lot more depth. I think if we look at what the inhibitors are to that adoption at the moment, we've talked a little bit about some of the technology, but I think the primary inhibitor still remains a cultural one, which is not having the systems in place, but having people understanding and, as Antony said, trained on and being able to use the systems and take the intelligence out of the systems, and then having the speed within the organization itself to make those decisions and act on them fast. And I think that's something that is coming much more slowly as we see it amongst our customer base.
And Franziska, what about your customer base? So laggards or leaders or laggards? Are there any areas you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, so naturally in the IT industry, obviously everybody is kind of tech savvy and really keen on driving innovation. But back to your question, I think we are just at the beginning, right? We are at the beginning of the opportunity, and there's such a great opportunity ahead of us that we cannot even grasp of how big it will actually be. But important will be that there will be standards that will be set, that there are people look at that. But at the same time, there will be also ethical concerns, right? To make sure that how far do we bring the data? What do we do with that? Does it get personal? Where should be the handover points between privacy and public, and so on. So there's a lot going on there. And I think important will also be how fast do people want to adopt their data, and how fast they want to immerse themselves into that entire business. And I think, as Warren was alluding to, it depends on what kind of vertical industry you're looking into. There are some that are kind of more the laggards because historically they have not been exposed to a lot of data and the savviness that goes with it. But then on the other end, there are verticals that actually are really developed, that actually are used to using data to make their decisions and so on. And so I think there will be a lot of great opportunity ahead of us.
And I've found with working with various businesses that it's actually those that had traditionally invested in R&D already, that were already prepared for that and putting a good amount of their top line back into R&D, they tended to adopt these further. And it didn't necessarily have to do with whether they had data themselves, but actually whether they were in the habit of sort of building new. And so back to the skills shortage, Antony, with your microphone. So just a little bit more sort of precision on exactly where, sort of beyond that sort of, right, that sort of core technical people, where, who, what should they be learning?
So we're dealing with people across every aspect of the business, and we've talked a lot here about kind of sales and marketing data, but also product data, and there's probably people here largely from that persuasion on the call.
Yeah.
But where we're dealing with them primarily is across the business.
Yeah.
So it's, if you think about the people dealing with data inside businesses, HR deals with a huge amount of data, legal, finance, also product, sales, marketing. It's everywhere in the business, and I think actually we joked prior to the panel that we need to start people actually much earlier in their learning cycles. This isn't just about businesses. This is, my baby due next month. This is, buying them the books on quantum computing for babies or machine learning for babies. We've got to start this actually much earlier in the cycle through universities, through schools, through apprenticeships. So we kind of need to make sure when people arrive in the business, they're already primed for that basic data analysis and basic understanding of machine learning. Because for us, it's across the business. That's where the skills gap is. It's not so much in the depth, it's in the breadth.
Yeah, and we've really found that it's not so much about training, while that's important. We've actually found that it's a side-by-side working of the discipline. So, at the sort of researcher team level, actually having interdisciplinary researchers having to sit down together to produce something together is actually goes a lot further than a sort of lean-back training exercise.
It's only working together you understand the kind of the value, the outcome,
Yeah.
and that's the key thing. So you can do as much as you want in training and education, but it's when you're at the coalface in a business where you need to kind of derive actual value and actual insights. That's where that kind of core training comes in.
Yeah, and so the practical side. Franziska, I wanted to come back to you on skills as well.
Yeah, so definitely. I mean, skilling needs to start early, right? It needs to start in school. Even pupils that are just learning how to take care of math or languages or whatever it is, they need to make it a habit to kind of work with data and learn how to make decisions based on data. And I think it's important that we not only go for, let's say, the mint part of this opportunity at schools, but also look into how can we smartly convert all the data, all the technology that is at the fingertips to actually create value out of that. So we should make people comfortable to learn in school, like how to discuss and debate, how to use the data point in order to make their point. So kind of connecting data with the conversation, so it becomes a natural habit. And then when they become educated of being like the students, and then having made maybe the first job or the second job, then this is something that's already in their DNA without having to be learned when they start in the IT industry, to say, okay, that's the first time I get exposed to any of GfK research data or something, but this is really something that people can already deal with and say, okay, I know how that works, and I can analyze it, and I can actually also talk about it in an educated fashion. So I think getting people the hunger to work on that innovative side is very important.
Yeah. And what about you, Christoph, in your line of work?
Yeah, maybe to add to that. Yeah, I mean, it's, for us, it's all about, the enablement and how to create more knowledge workers and showing them, even in a behavioral way, how to leverage data for them. And when you look into analytics and insights, it's typically coming out of a management practice. We typically start with reporting, and they were there, we trying to get insights, and then inside organizations, we try to funnel them down. And I mean, of course, Anne and Franziska like the approach that we're going to, we start in schools and the kindergarten, but, we have billions of people that are in jobs right now, where this is over. So we need to find ways of how we can, as you said earlier, Anne, right, how we can get them to the stage and to the level that they can leverage the data available and leverage, to become better knowledge workers. And when we look inside the organizations, I mean, 5 to 15% are typically management. The rest is the general workforce. And that's our goal with Kaizo. We want to provide platforms and tools that enable kind of the average employee, the average colleague and teammate to utilize the data available to become better at what they do and to show them ways of how they maybe work more effective. And that in the end benefits the organization. So it's really to distill and say, okay, it's not about management only and how to do this on the top level, but really to bring it down to the individual actual person who is operationally working actually with the data on a day-to-day basis, but most likely they don't know at this point.
And Warren, can you elaborate on how you sort of help your clients in those areas? So what it's like to work with your teams?
I think the key thing is really around how we democratize the data as broadly as we can. I think if you look historically at large organizations, you would have had a small group of people who would be the kind of data gatekeepers, and they would gather the data together and they would disseminate that in their business or do the analysis on behalf of the business. I think if you can bring that intelligent automation layer, part of what that brings you is the democratization ability to just let everyone have access and let everyone, in a simple way understand some of the decision support and intelligence that's coming out of the system.
Yeah. You get different questions asked, don't you?
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
The ones who start with the data tend to start with the data, and the ones who start with the question, you get actually quite a different feel, don't you?
Definitely.
Yeah. So a little bit about the recent sort of advances in this field. I don't know who wants to take this one, so listen to it and decide who wants to take this one. But if you had to name a really big advancement, and the single biggest advancement in the last 10 years, last decade, on how we've used AI and data and analytics, what would it be?
I've got it.
You want to go? Yeah.
Only because I'm in the space, right?
Yeah.
So machine reading, machine learning.
Optical recognition.
Exactly. Those replacements for the grunt work of humans trying to analyze massive amounts of data.
Yeah. The eye to the brain to the pen.
Exactly. Moving humans into the creative aspect
Okay.
and machines into what they do best, that for me is it.
Anyone else want to have a go? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I quickly. For me, it would definitely be that we can make these tools available, on scale. When we look at, what the internet basically brought us and what, all these improvements on latency and everything brought us, we now have SaaS solution that's, where every person basically can leverage on it, from starting with the phone where, what Anne said, also machine reading, but, on the image side, what you can use in order to improve images, right? But you can do this, you can utilize it instead of, when I look back 5 to 8 years ago, right, where it took months basically to prepare data and then basically to start analyzing it and then to start deriving actions out of that for one particular use case only.
Yeah. Anyone else? I've got a question.
Maybe quick input from my side as well. Sorry, just on the technological layer, that's very, very important that also this advances together with all the demands that you actually just mentioned there. Because without this kind of symbiosis almost, that technology advances together with the amount of data that flows in, with the way we are processing data with AI and so on, it's very important to also have that and make sure that we get fast technology, fast processors, fast software, to kind of crunch all the data in order to have it at our fingertips, not only waiting for like a week to do whatever data analysis you want to run, or that it takes a month for AI to learn a certain task. So very, very important to have that together.
Yeah. And I've got a good question here asking, how have any of you incorporated the implications of climate change in the AI analytics? So I'll take a first go while everyone thinks about this. So very clearly in machine learning, there's the problem of processing power and the use of, and sometimes the waste of electricity with these very high data, high processing techniques. So everybody really needs to think about that. The other area where these things intersect is very much the analytics and measurement and supporting and predictions of what's happening to the planet and to the biosphere and so forth. And I would say that that era of measurement and coming to sort of reports about how slow or fast the ice is moving, we're sort of done that already. I think many organizations have sort of given the information, but that's clearly not enough. And what we're starting to see is actual work in the area of how do you retool, how do you re-engineer entire supply chains or processes so that the outcome is closer to net zero or carbon reduced or so forth. So I would say that that's kind of the evolution I've seen, that intersection of the two. But I'm guessing some of you will have something to say about risk, uncertainty, those kinds of areas. So who would like to go?
I can say very quickly. As a startup, as an agile business, I'm not sure our climate impact is huge right now. But what I can say is we're tracking misinformation on this very topic. That's our angle, is to make sure that both in how we're processing information, how we're presenting information, and exactly the kind of customers we allow to sign up to our product, is making sure those guys are responsible with the truth and responsible with the facts. So, yeah.
Good.
Yeah, I think sort of understanding the consumer journey and the path to purchase, but also, you know, the difference between what people say and what they do in relation to sustainability. So, you know, a lot of people will make the right noise, but then they'll buy the cheapest product. And I think understanding as a manufacturer, you know, your target demographic and what features are important to them, and, you know, and how you explain those features from a sustainability point of view to make sure that you're getting the messaging right and to make sure that you're getting the feature set right, and actually getting the right products to the right people. It's super important.
Anyone else want to weigh in? It's a big question. No?
Yeah, I mean, for us, I think.
Go ahead, Christoph.
So no, for us, it's quite simple. I mean, we you know, as a performance management solution, right, we cannot do much to positively impact it on to actively impact it. I think what we do, and this comes actually out of customer inquiries, is that we use less data. And that means that we basically found ways and identified data that we don't need from our customers, and we basically throw that away so that we don't have to store that and we don't have to process that, which basically reduces the costs on the one hand, but on the other hand also reduces the, you know, carbon footprint basically that we need in order to provide our services.
Yeah. And the other interesting use case I've seen as well is actually much publicly available data. You know, public companies who may not necessarily be reporting on their carbon measures and so forth. Actually, it's quite easy now to go and get that data, right, with optical recognition, even if it's not in a format that's easily used. And so a lot of benchmarking is starting to happen. And so I guess as a sort of comment there, it's CSR is starting to sort of happen to companies as well as what they report themselves. And so again, it's always useful, I think, as a business to not just look at your own data the way it appears internally, but what's available externally and how that's coming together. You might be surprised to find where you are in those kinds of rankings and benchmarkings. So I think I'm going to come to a question at the end about the advice you'd give to businesses. So given everything we've talked about and all the thinking around intelligent automation, give some thought to what are the 2 pieces of advice you'd give to a business, starting with Franziska.
Yeah, so definitely I would say you have to skill up your workforce, your entire workforce, and then use the power of data to actually immerse yourself in it, to kind of live and breathe with it. So here, I think really look at your workforce and immerse yourself there, see what they need in order to be these kind of knowledge workers that we were talking about. That would be my best advice for you guys.
Thank you. And Christoph, what about you? 2 pieces of advice.
Yeah, as I said at the beginning, have the end user in the focus. When you try to solve a problem, look at how does your workforce, your people basically can add and contribute to that, and how you can make them smarter and better knowledge workers to solve it for you. That's better for the environment. That's better for the end customer then in particular. And it makes the employee more happy as well because, you know, they have a higher achievement and higher goals and just a happier people.
Yeah. What about you, Ant?
I'd say training too. Training not just your data teams, but training your entire workforce, not just in data analytics, but actually the basics of machine learning. And the other point I'd say is probably get your strategy straight. So make sure you've actually outlined some of the potential value props from this kind of analysis. Make sure that people are inspired and eager to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that really resonates. We often speak to companies who ask us to do some research into AI, and you sort of say, well, AI for what, right? Right, just like with anything, a platform for what, data for what, analytics for what, and it's very hard to optimize around an unknown goal.
Yeah,
right.
By all means, experiment, but at least have some kind of goals.
Exactly, some sort of objective function that you can sort of come together with and really make sure you're pointed in the right direction, whatever that may be. And what about for you, Warren, if you had to sort of give 2 pieces of advice?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I look at data. Data can be quite dangerous. Think about the way we use social media on a personal level. We tend to use it to validate our own beliefs rather than understand what's really happening. And I think we can easily fall into that trap in the corporate world as well. So we'll always find data that tells us what we want to hear. I think the best thing, really, or the best piece of advice I can give is find data that challenges the status quo, that challenges your accepted process and your accepted sort of outcomes, and then work back from that to understand, why that's different, why things are changing, and really that can help you on your own journey as a cultural shift, as a business, to have a slightly different thought process in the way that you make decisions and how you use data to drive that, rather than, and I think this is really dangerous, as I say, just using data to validate what you already thought in the first place, which is kind of, zero-sum gain really in most cases.
Yeah. That's really in keeping with where the research community is headed.
Yeah.
The days of sort of, machine learning jockeys just sort of spitting out answers in domains that they don't understand are well past. And I think in general, what we're finding is a tremendous respect. I see it in the business communities, I see it in the research communities, but tremendous respect for domain knowledge.
Yep.
So whether it's a clinician working alongside, a research data scientist, or whether it's, a platform provider working with a particular client in an industry, you see it over and over again. That all coming together and putting it together. Well, I wanted to thank everybody on this panel. So from Franziska, Christoph, and Warren, wanted to thank everybody for coming together and having this discussion. I think I heard this over and over today, that culture point, not just training, but also that sort of deep understanding across us all. And the idea that, startups can provide valuable lessons as well to big companies. And actually, I think the future is really bright on adoption. It seems like there's plenty to do from here to there, and plenty of hard work to get there. So thank you very much to the audience. Thank you to all of you for listening in.
Thanks so much, Christine. Thanks to the panel. And what an incredible event. At the start, I was talking about being lost in the forest, and this idea that if you can just learn to read the signs around you, then you can start to see the wood for the trees. Well, I feel like from the panel and from the all the content that we've heard today, it's really 2 key things that have stood out most to me, which is you have to find a problem that's actually worth solving. And then you have to work with others to solve it together, whether you're a top data science researcher or whether you're someone who is completely new to data. It's about collaborating about that problem that's worth solving. That's how you're going to get yourself through the wilderness. So the only thing I have left to do, though, is to thank our host, Peter. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Lindsay and Christine, and everyone who contributed to this great start today. I'm really grateful for you joining our event and having this great discussion with us today. Now, I see that as a beginning of a journey, so it would be outstanding, if we can continue that discussion also into the future. And if you have any thoughts or questions, please submit them via the Q&A box on your screen. So from me and all of us here, thank you very much for participating. We'll look forward to speaking to you much more intensively in the future, and bye for now. Thank you.